the highs and lows, man, are ridiculous. I mean, the highs and then the lows, and it's just like this,
Right,
just like
yeah.
this. So like a year or two into the business, where one of the lows I thought was it. I thought it was the end.
All right, hey everybody. Welcome to the Nova Life Business Breakdown, where our goal is to bring the practicality of business back into the world of entrepreneurship. So finding a health-focused snack has become easier than ever. You can literally walk into any store and find a product for just about every kind of health niche out there. And enjoying such great products is, it's quick and easy, but the way that they got to where they are, it's not so much the same story. Our guest here today was able to hop on that trend, on the health food trend, all while creating a socially responsible company only a few years out of college, and was able to turn it into a huge success. Phil Hughes is the founder and CEO of Mavuno Harvest, a provider of ethically sourced and organic dried fruit sourced directly from family farms right out of Africa. He is a former Peace Corps member, a mechanical engineering graduate, and also holds an MBA in international business, and is a huge fitness enthusiast. Hey Phil, thanks for being on the show. I
Yeah,
appreciate you making the time for us.
absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so basically the whole goal of the show is to be able to bring practicality back into the world of entrepreneurship. So a lot of people talk about these magnificent and grand things that come, from all the companies that you hear on the media, but
Hmm.
not so much the companies that, are much smaller, and don't have, hundreds of millions of dollars in funding.
Yep.
And the goal is to really help those people out, instead of saying, hey, how can I make $1 billion? Like, how can I make my first 10,000?
Sure.
And be profitable.
Yep.
And that's the entire basis. I'm taking that fundamental idea and being able to turn it into, actionable advice
Okay.
for the entrepreneur.
Yep. It's a good idea.
So let's just brief the audience a little bit on your background.
Sure.
Tell me about yourself, where you come from.
Okay, sure. So I'm from Philadelphia originally. I was born and raised here. I traveled around a lot uh, through college and after college. And like you said, I was in the Peace Corps, so I lived in Africa for a while. And I did lots of different things throughout the world, but then I ended up back here. My family's here, and it's kind of my home, so back in Philadelphia now. Yeah.
Sure. Have you lived anywhere else besides those two places, Philly and
So
Africa?
I lived in D.C. for college. Then I went to live in Kenya for Peace Corps. Then I lived in India. Then I lived in Japan, Rwanda.
Wow.
I lived briefly. I did a stint where I worked with FEMA after Hurricane Katrina. So
Sure,
I lived in
right.
the southeastern U.S., working with hurricane evacuees after that. And then, and then Philadelphia.
Wow, it's a lot. It's a lot of places.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
And how long was the stay at each place typically?
So Kenya was the longest for Peace Corps. That was 2 years. Rwanda was 6 months. India was 6 months. Japan was like 3 months. And then when I bounced around the southeast U.S., those were like quick, maybe 1 month at a time. I lived in Albuquerque.
Right,
I
right.
lived in Little Rock.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot. What's your favorite place? What do you miss the most?
I mean, my favorite place on earth is like probably Philadelphia.
Sure.
And then second would be Kenya.
Kenya,
So
right.
Kenya I kind of consider my second home just because I lived there for so long. I was in Peace Corps there, and then I lived there when I was trying to start my business. And speak Swahili. I know the culture. I know the people. And I kind of got spoiled when I lived in Kenya because now when I travel, I go to, let's see, where was I most recently? So I was in the Philippines last year. And I go there and it's really fascinating. It's awesome, but I know very little about the culture. I don't understand the people. So it's like, it's cool. I still have a great time in a beautiful country. But like, the nice thing about Kenya is I feel at home there, even though I don't necessarily look.
No, makes sense.
the
Of
same.
course, you stayed there the
Yeah.
longest. Yeah, you
Mhm.
connected with the culture. That's
Yep.
cool. Wow, that's a lot. So you've been able to build Mavuno Harvest from the ground up since 2011. Is that correct?
Yep.
2011. How did the idea for Mavuno first start?
Sure. So like I said, I was in the Peace Corps in Kenya from 2003 to 2005, and I lived in this tiny little village out in the middle of nowhere, and I worked with the local people to try to help them, better their lives. So I was actually a public health volunteer, but
Cool.
when you get there, you realize that yes, public health is a huge concern. But so is economics and business opportunity
Sure.
for people, right? So they live out in the middle of nowhere, and there's a dirt road to the place, and there's no electricity running to the place. Nobody has running water. And I would say 95% of the people that lived in the village were farmers. And
Wow.
that's just because, like, you own this small plot of land. There's no jobs to be had, so you don't really have a job. So how are you going to survive? How are you going to eat and feed your family? It's through the land.
It's the most practical thing to do.
Right. So they farm. So, and then, most of the stuff that they farm is like corn and beans. So they use that. It's their staple crops, and they're easy to grow, and they, generate a lot of calories. So you can feed your family with corn and beans. So some of these farmers would have, they would also have vegetables or fruit on their property, right? And they would use that as kind of like a cash crop. So they would, if they had a mango tree and the mangoes become fresh, they take all those mangoes to the local market and they try to sell them, and they make a little bit of money off that. But the problem is they're not making enough money off of that, and really the biggest issue, or the biggest issue related to that, is because they can't sell their whole entire harvest. So mangoes become fresh, take them to the local market, and mangoes are fresh one time a year.
Right.
So they become fresh. They take them to the local market. Let's say you got 100 mangoes there. On average, they can only sell about 30 of them. So they're selling them. I mean, it's this super rural village, dirt road. It's not too many cars passing
Right.
by,
So
and they're trying to
70%
sell on the road. Yeah,
would go to waste.
Yeah, about 70% goes to waste.
Wow.
Now they can take some. I mean, they just sit there all day while they're selling, and they'll eat them.
Right.
And they'll give them to their kids, but there's only so many mangoes you can eat, and it's fresh fruit, so it goes bad. So basically what I saw right there, and my mind is like, I'm much more like numbers oriented in math and economics and business.
Right, from your mechanical engineering
Yeah,
background,
and so I just saw that as like, you just see mangoes rotting on the side of the road, and they're delicious. I mean, they're the best mangoes you ever had. They're super natural, totally organic, never been touched by chemicals. And it's just a tremendous amount of waste, and it's not only like wasted food, right? Because there's the whole issue of food waste, but it's also like what I saw it as is wasted income for these farmers, right? So if they can sell a mango, let's just pretend they sell it for $1, and they're only selling 30 of those mangoes. They're only getting $30. They could be getting $100. So that was the idea for Mavuno Harvest. So what we do is we work with farmers in different parts of Africa to basically buy up all that excess fruit. And then we take that and we dry that in Africa, which then also creates jobs for people who work in these drying facilities. And then we import it into the United States, and then we sell it as a healthy snack, which is right here. So that was like, when I started this, it was just this big grand idea, this total scheme, right?
When was it that you had that aha moment? Were you up by the farms? And
I mean,
you
it was
saw
probably
rotting fruit, or
it was probably it was like a long things, a bunch of things that were just building up in my mind, right? So I saw this in Peace Corps, but I didn't think to start a business. I just saw it, and then I plugged it away somewhere in my brain. And then I went back to Africa, and I worked in Rwanda doing something else with coffee farmers, trying to help coffee farmers reach international markets. And then, so that went into my brain. And then I got an MBA, and that went into my brain. All these things were just like...
So it was a couple of years, definitely years.
Oh, yeah. Definitely had a lot of, different experiences. It was probably 6 years after Peace Corps before I started the company. And it was all these different experiences kind of came together. And it was like that's when the light bulb went off. It was like,
right.
Well, wait a minute, what about this? And then I had seen other brands in the U.S. that were selling like a social mission, and I thought, this is probably something, like, it's a good idea from a social perspective to be able to buy these fruits from these farmers and help them get paid more. But I also think it's a marketable idea in the United States, because people are becoming more aware of
the trends just sprouting.
Yep. Yeah, and they're becoming more aware of like where their food comes from and the impact that it has. So.
Sure. What were you doing when you had that aha moment? Like, what stage in life were you when you decided, all right, I'm going to give this a try?
I was unemployed.
Unemployed.
Yeah. So I was, let's see, I was like 30, probably about 30, and I had been working at a job that I didn't really like, and that company got bought by another company, and they laid off a whole bunch of people, so they laid me off.
Got it.
So I was unemployed, and but I was, I was collecting whatever you call it, like my severance pay.
Sure.
But I was trying to figure out like what to do next in my life, and I always had this thought of being an entrepreneur, and really look back on that as a blessing because it was really the thing that like kicked me into gear.
Sure.
It
Does
was
that
like,
stem from your family? In any history? Any
I
aunts,
mean, my
uncles?
dad is definitely an entrepreneur, so he has always done things for himself and by himself. I mean, he's worked in it as an accountant, but he always owned his own firm and he has his hand in a whole bunch of different things. So he's very entrepreneurial.
Got it.
Where my specific entrepreneurial drive came from, I'm not really sure. I mean, I always liked building things. I always liked creating things, and I was always a pretty good solo operator. You know, somebody that was able to like find the energy from within to do things.
Sure. Right. Very self-driven, right?
So yeah, and then also, truthfully, I didn't really like working for other people.
Hey, yeah, I can relate. Sure.
And
A
just
lot of people get.
I wanted to do something where I was lucky because when I did Peace Corps, I felt for the first time this feeling of like absolute fulfillment in what I was doing, and I always was chasing that feeling then afterwards, and I wanted to do something where I could like dedicate every aspect of my body and every aspect of my mind towards one goal. And it's even better that that one goal happens to be like, you know, my baby here and it's
Right.
mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. You look like the kind of guy that goes all in whenever he knows what he wants.
yeah, that's pretty accurate actually. I think when I find a new hobby, I'm like
You
obsessed.
become
I
obsessed,
become
right?
obsessed. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's. I think that.
Do you think that led or contributed to your success?
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are. You got to be a little bit manic. And you
Right.
got to be a little
Yeah.
crazy, and you have to be able to wake up at 4 in the morning, not because somebody told you to, but because you need to, and you want to. And actually, you know, if you find something you really love, you do love it. So I don't mind waking up at 4 in the morning, and
Of course
I don't
not.
do it every day, but some days I do, and I wake up and I'm like, oh, you know, I got to do the cash flow statement today, and I'm like, all right, cool.
Right, and that's
Just
exciting.
gonna
You know,
jump into
looking
Excel.
at an Excel sheet now becomes exciting.
Right,
Can you believe
exactly.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like any financial document, whether it's cash flow or profit and loss or balance sheet, whatever, like they all tell a story, right? And when you're reading it, you're reading the story of your business, and you can say
Right.
like, what am I doing? What did I do like a month ago or 6 months ago or a year ago, and how has that affected this financial document? And you can look at it and say like, huh, well, was that really a good idea? And then like, so I love that stuff. I love diving into that stuff.
Right, and you have a lot riding on, on the line too.
Sure.
It is your company. I'm sure you have a lot of money invested, so you kind of have to focus on where your money is a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not only money, but it's time. I mean, I started this 7 years ago, and I mean the amount of time I've put in is absurd.
Right.
Like I don't know. There's a Malcolm Gladwell book. I forget which one, where he says in order to become an expert at something, you need 10,000 hours. Right.
Yep.
I I passed that
Surpassed 100%. Yeah.
way, yeah, a long time ago. So it's not only like, you know, it's not only the money that you've invested, but it's the time and it's how much energy you've put into it.
Sure.
So,
And the interesting thing is, if you were working 40 hours at a job or a place you didn't like, it would feel like forever. But
right.
but the 80-hour weeks you're probably pulling, feels like it's just 10 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my day is like I wake up early, I have a nice breakfast, I work, you know, then I'll actually go into work. Uh, and then I'll take a break during the day and I'll go to the gym or I'll go take care of some errands and then I'll come back and I'll work. Like, you know, I don't want like new entrepreneurs to be afraid of this kind of lifestyle, but it's like I keep saying I use the word work, but it's not work. It's like my hobby,
Right.
and that's what it becomes. So it's 24/7,
Sure.
which is
Right. Even when you're not working, you're still actively thinking
oh sure,
about it. And it's intensive thought too, right? It's
yeah,
not just
yeah, because it's like I mean you can be thinking about details, minutiae, or you could be thinking about grand strategy, and it's I mean I was just thinking about it yesterday. I was in the food store like just grocery shopping, and
What's your favorite food store, by the way?
my
Where do you
favorite
like
food
to
store.
go? Yeah.
I shop at cheap places. I mean, my favorite place is Trader Joe's,
Trader Joe's. Yeah.
but there's not a Trader Joe's close, so I shop at Acme.
You know
which
that
is like,
Aldi actually owns Trader Joe's?
do they?
I didn't know that. Yeah,
No,
I
I
just
didn't know
found
that
out the
either.
other day. Yeah, there's back in Europe, there's an Aldi North and Aldi South. The Aldi South, I believe, is the one that we know.
Okay.
And then they couldn't name a second company Aldi too, so they changed the name to Trader Joe's.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, because Aldi North wanted to sell cigarettes, but the owner, they had two owners, yeah, and the Aldi South, he didn't want to, so they split up. North and South was the naming difference. When it came to the U.S. and Trader Joe's and then Aldi's.
Yeah,
I didn't
that's
know
great. I mean, it's a great place because they get really good quality food, but it's like relatively, even though I sell a brand, it's unbranded and it's like private label kind of. So it's cheap.
Sure.
It's good food for not too much money. So yeah. But go ahead.
Okay, so what kept you going throughout this entire time? I mean, 7 years is a long time, and I'm sure the first 3 are even harder, especially when you're new to the industry.
Yeah, the first 3. No idea what I was doing.
Right, yeah. How did you get past that? What did you...
I did so many dumb things. Like, I remember, like, we got our first Amazon order, and I didn't know how to ship a box. Like, we had, like, all these case packs, right? These small boxes. And I didn't have a big box. And for some reason, I didn't think that you needed a big box. So I took all these little boxes, and I just taped them all together.
Right.
And then I, like, stuck a label on it. And I was like,
why not?
There's our Amazon shipment.
Hey,
We're off and running.
Did you get the package returned? Did they say no? We can't accept this? No, they took it.
Works, yeah. They probably like got it and they're like, "What is this?" But they have knives, they cut it apart.
Right.
So what kept me going? I don't know, man. There's a lot of different things. I mean,
did you have a support system?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, my family was great throughout the whole process. My dad, like I was saying, like my dad's like done a lot of these things, and he's an entrepreneur. And he understands business, and I mean, he was always there in the beginning. I mean, now it's like I kind of am able to run it myself. I pretty much understand, but he taught me so much at the beginning, and then also was just like always had my back. And then my fiance as well. She's always there to listen, even though she does not work in this industry, which is like vital, man. Like when you're doing this, you're in this little world by yourself, and you're like you're just in it all the time by yourself, and you need to be able to like speak to somebody. So at least for me, because I'm a solo entrepreneur, right? Like when people started as like partners.
So you did not have a co-founder. This was all just you, purely you. Got it. Right. You did all the heavy lifting.
Yep. So for me, it's like to be able. I need to get that out sometimes. I need to like talk to people about it and like hear another perspective or whatever. And so my fiance has been great with that. She's always listening, and she knows like everybody. I mean, she knows you. I talked about you, so she knows.
Oh, really?
Okay. She knows who is
I'm flattered. Like, hopefully you get things.
Yeah. When you create something, and you probably know this, like, and you create something, all of a sudden it's like, it's you. That is me. That is so much me. It's like, and I've created that, and I'm like every little detail of that. So I created that thing. I put that thing out into the world. Like now, it's like my ego and my reputation, and everything. Like, it has to work, and I will make it work. And then in addition to that, one more thing, like, and I'm sure there's a lot that keeps me going, but like, it's like the little wins. So you're doing this for a few months, and then somebody buys your product, and you're like, oh my God, somebody actually bought it. Like,
how quickly did you get your first sale?
My very first.
And what product was it?
So my very first attempt. So I got home to Philadelphia, and there's a local co-op called Swarthmore Co-op, right? And I had 3 products. I had dried mango, dried pineapple, dried banana, and the packaging was terrible. I mean, it was fine, but I hate it now. And
so these are
new. This is like
much newer, much nicer. I like it. This is, the matte finish, very nice.
Yep, thanks. It's clean, simple, it's colorful.
So it looked nothing like this. It was.
No, it was like it was brown. It was not matte finish. I don't know. You learn a lot of lessons about branding as you go along. But so I go into the Swarthmore Food Co-op, and I was like so nervous driving up there, and I had these 3 products, right? And I'm like, I just spent 6 months in Africa trying to even get this out of Africa and trying to make a company out of this. I haven't sold 1 bag. I have no idea if I could sell anything.
It's been months. You're still okay.
I'm not really looking forward to selling anything. Like, I didn't want to be a salesperson, and then I went into this one co-op, and the meeting was probably 30 seconds.
Did you have high hopes for the meeting?
Probably.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't remember all of the feeling that I remember is fear. Like that's the feeling I remember. Yeah, because I was like, because I'd never sold anything before, and I didn't really think that I wanted to be a salesperson.
Right.
it's not that bad nowadays, but like I wasn't really looking forward to that. And I went in there, and meeting was probably like 30 or 40 seconds. She's like, "Yeah, I'll take it." I was like, "Oh my
30, 40
god."
seconds.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because she's busy. And I was like,
What was your pitch? What was your pitch? What did you say? Do you
God
remember?
knows. Who knows? My pitch was probably like 10 minutes long. I don't know.
10
It was probably like way too long, but I probably just told her, I probably, when I first started, it was like pure social mission. That was my
Right.
pitch.
That's a
Right?
big seller. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
And so I probably
Very
started
good.
telling her the story, and she just like looked at the product and she tried it and she ate some, and she's like, "Yeah, this is
Proof
good."
is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I've tried them. I love them.
Yeah.
Very good.
I mean, she was like sort of listening to me as she opened the bag and then just ate some pineapple, and she's like, "This is great." So
Right.
I'll bring it in.
That's exactly what a
Yeah.
customer would do.
Right.
They're not going to listen to you. They're going to
Exactly.
try it.
Yeah.
If they like it, they're going to buy it. Done.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I would say like, so like I said, I was talking to her about like this pure social mission thing, right? And like we do have a social mission, and it's a great story and everything, but like I don't think that's what sells our product primarily. I think it's like the clean, simple food, right?
Yeah.
And it's clean, simple packaging. That's what sells it. And then like you got your like, you do have people that will come back to the brand if they read about it and they
Right.
find out what the real story is.
The only ingredient is literally organic dried mango.
Right.
That's it. There's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
added sweetener, sugar, nothing. Just straight up
And it's delicious.
dried. I can't believe it.
I don't know why people add sugar to fruit. Like,
It's sweet.
fruit's
I
good.
can't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like there's some stuff. I mean, I don't know about ice cream without sugar, but fruit you don't need to add.
Right.
anything.
Of course not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was your first retail break. When
Mhm.
was your first big break? Like when did you get something that really excited you? I mean,
I
nothing will
remember-
excite you like the
okay.
first sale, but like what?
So
When made you take a step back? Be like, wow,
it was probably
that
still
just happened.
that first year, and it might have been the beginning of the second year. I'm not sure. When we got into our first Whole Foods, and so that was like, because when I thought that I could potentially make a business out of this, I was like, this product is built for Whole Foods. At least in my limited knowledge of the industry.
You're right.
So I was like,
Yeah.
it's natural and it has a social mission, and they would care about this. And I went into like one store, local store near Philadelphia, and I met with the buyer, and he was like, same thing, like a 30-second meeting.
30 seconds.
And he's like, I'll bring it in. And I was
That's
like,
amazing. Wow. What
and
year
I
was this?
remember I never post on Facebook personally, and I remember posting on Facebook. I just wrote Whole Foods,
Whole Foods.
and
That's
I got
it.
like 1,000 likes.
Wow.
I was like, yeah. So like that was, I remember that one. And there've been, it's always been growing year over year over year. So I always remember them. Now it's like, there's another thing. Like, so when I first started the company, and you'll find this as you go too, it's like the highs and lows, man, are ridiculous. I mean, the highs and then the lows, and it's
Plummets.
just like this,
Right,
just like
yeah.
this. So like,
How
now
did you deal
I've
with that? How did you in the beginning, right?
just
Now you got thick
Kept
skin,
going.
but before when it's a very delicate layer. What do you
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when I probably a year or two into the business, where one of the lows I thought was it. I thought it was the end.
What was that? Yeah, tell me about that.
So we originally started, so I did Peace Corps in Kenya, but we actually originally started sourcing from Uganda, which is right next door to Kenya. And we had a problem with our supplier. They lost their organic certification.
Oh, wow.
So I could no longer source from them. And when I started the company, it was really difficult. There was nobody in Africa even doing this, right? So I was like helping develop suppliers and like just searching all over for them. And
Right.
I had one in all of Africa, and they lost their organic certification, right? So we were still small, so I had like enough inventory on me, but I was like, I think it's over. And I remember I was like sitting with my parents, and my dad was like, he's like, well, you gotta keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like,
Yeah.
Okay.
What
And
are
I was
you gonna
like,
do? What do you, what's
I
the
mean,
alternative? Yeah.
I wasn't making any money. I mean, our sales were like, I was excited about each individual sale, but I look back on it now and it was like,
Do you remember?
why were they even doing that?
Right.
I mean, yeah, like what, the numbers or?
Yeah. What year was that? When
It
you
was
had
probably-
the big supplier get cut off?
It was either 2012 or 2013.
Okay.
Yeah. And so like I jumped on a plane. I was back in Uganda, and like
There was nothing you could do. You couldn't help them or
them,
facilitate
no,
something
no.
that was just game over.
It was like they voluntarily got rid of it, so they didn't want it anymore.
I understand.
Yeah, because they were
Okay.
like, organic's too hard, it's pain, and we have customers in Europe that'll buy the conventional stuff.
Yep.
So I went over to Africa, and I like met with like all these people from like the Ugandan Trade Association and the United States Agency for International Development, and like I was able to find a list of potential people in Uganda that could do dried fruit. I found one guy who was not organic certified,
Okay.
and I convinced him. I was like, look, the market in the U.S. is big. Believe in me. And he decided then to get certified organic, and then he became he's probably my longest supplier at this point. Yeah.
That's nice.
So, and he works with like, I forget how many farmers. I think it's like a farmer co-op of like 150 guys, and so he works with them. He sources from them, and then he does the actual drying. So I mean, that was probably the last time, and it was really only one time where I thought of giving up, where I thought it was like,
wow,
this just doesn't work, because I was sort of starting to figure out how to sell things in the U.S. and how to create a business over here, but like my whole entire business was based on sourcing from Africa, and I had no supplier. So I was like,
now what would you have done? Say you couldn't find one, or it was just too much time.
I mean, in retrospect, I could think of some things, but at the time, I was like, I mean, in retrospect, I could have changed the brand. I mean, I could have been like, you know what, we're not doing dried fruit out of Africa anymore. We're going to do tea out of Africa, and maybe I could find a supplier for tea,
In hindsight, now
Right.
that's what you would
But,
do.
it's like when you're up against it and shit hits the fan, like, you just don't know what to do. Like, your brain's like running 1,000 miles an hour, and you're like, I don't know what to do. So, looking back on it, now I think maybe that would have been a good idea. Just switch to a different product, or, but at the time, so that was one of the biggest, question marks of the whole journey. And then other than that, so like we've gotten discontinued from big retailers.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that?
Sure. Yeah, there's always a reason, or sometimes there isn't a reason. Yeah, so we got discontinued from two of our really big customers within like 1 month, and it was like,
how'd you feel?
Terrible. I thought it was over.
Really?
And this was like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and because I was like, we can't continue with this, like, So
how close were those two retailers? Yeah. No, sorry. No, in terms of timeline.
Oh, it was within a month. I mean,
of each other.
Yeah.
They both. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean, it was tough because it felt like I felt like I was like just getting to this point where, okay, this is gonna work.
You're starting to feel comfortable, right? Almost.
And then it was just like everything came crashing down. But it was like another time, it was like another blessing in disguise, because it forced me to get so much tighter and so much better at running the business, because I realized, after the initial shock, the first 24 hours when I thought, the sky was falling, I then went and I was like, all right, well, how can I fix this? Is it fixable? What can I do? How do I pivot? And I just looked at all my expenses. I looked at my P&L. I looked at, everything that I was doing, and I evaluated every single step, and I reevaluated it, and I cut a ton of fat. Like I was just wasting money in certain ways.
Now, was this all you? Did you call in external help?
No, I did it all. It's all
double
me.
check?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
you.
I mean, my dad helped and everything, but it was really me, because I mean, at that point, I was like probably 4 or 5 years into the business, so I had a pretty good grasp.
Right. So, because if you didn't understand it, someone else wasn't going to do the work.
Yeah, and nobody was going to be able to learn my business as well as I do that quickly. So, maybe I could hire an expensive consultant, and they would tell me, I don't know, maybe they could come up with some idea. But whatever I did, I restructured everything, and I just gave us such a more firm footing for growth by doing that, because it was like.
How did you do that?
I basically just I would cut costs everywhere. So
got it. Okay, number one.
So we used to use co-packers, and we used to use outsourced fulfillment centers, right? I brought that all in house. So now we have our own warehouse. We do our own packaging. We do our own shipping, right? So that helps the margin. I had outside sales forces that I was probably paying too much, and they were really cool, because I went to them and I said, we just lost these 2 huge customers. We're screwed. I don't know if I can keep doing this at the current rate I'm paying you. And all of them, one of them didn't, but that person didn't last. But most of them were like, you know what, Phil, we believe in what you're doing. We really like you. So no problem. We're going to cut it back to X, right?
Wow.
And then we've stayed at that level ever since. So,
really?
Yeah. So I was able to cut everything to a much more manageable level. I mean, when you start, dude, when you start in the business, nobody's going to give you good pricing. for anything.
Sure.
Because you're like, you come and say like, I need to buy 100 boxes from this box manufacturer, and they're like, all right, yeah, it's $10 a box, right? After a few years,
because it's such a low volume, right? 100
right?
boxes,
It's low volume, and like you're nobody.
You're wasting their time,
Yeah,
basically.
you
That's how
are
they see it.
exactly. Yeah. So like, but after 5 years, it's like, call up the box manufacturer. Hey, Brian, like, I really need you to cut this, man. Like, I've been a good customer for 5 years. I've done X amount of business.
5 years of overpaying.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Being treated like.
And then
crap.
he's like, you know what? You're right. I could probably save you a penny on that box.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Penny for every 5 years.
Yeah. It's a penny business. I mean, this food is a volume business. It's a penny business.
How tight are the margins typically across the board? The food industry is very, very tight.
It all depends. I mean, when I started, I was told rule of thumb is get yourself a 40% margin, including shipping, right? So like, I want to, whatever it costs to make, for me to make this, I got to sell it to my customer, get it there, and I need a 40% margin there. That's what I was told as the rule of thumb.
Once it reaches their doorstep. Got it.
Right. So, but I've seen it done so many different ways from different food companies. I mean, some people have a much higher margin, who I'm jealous of. Some people have a much lower margin, and those companies
struggling.
They just have a different path. So with a 40% margin, in theory, you can grow organically and have profit. If you go to a 20% gross, 20% not gross margin. If you get to a 20% margin, you're really never going to make profit. It's too hard, because the amount of profit that you're making every time you sell one of these things is just not that much, and your volume has to be enormous. And when the volume gets enormous, you can't do it by yourself. You need to hire staff, and staff costs money. So
is that a sign that you're just doing something wrong? You've missed something if it's 20%?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's a different it's a different strategy. I mean, I don't think, okay, so RX bar sold for $600 million. I'm not sure they ever made profit. I don't know, but you can do it that way. You can do it where all you focus on is top line sales, and you just jack up top line sales as much as you possibly can, and you don't necessarily ever make profit. But as long as those sales are growing, then you can continue to raise money on that. In fact, most brands don't really focus on profit.
I feel like that's the new trend.
Yeah.
Trying an exit strategy is now becoming the thing you're going for, right? Owning the business for longer than 10 years is unheard of now. You got to sell 6 years, 7 years. Have the investors, go public, or have the investors regain their money, and then you just walk away.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's whatever you want as an entrepreneur or as a business owner. For me, that was never the goal. Like, really, I don't know if I had a long-term strategy, a long-term goal in the beginning. I think I just wanted to do something to help these farmers over there. Like,
that was amazing.
I was like fresh. I did Peace Corps, and then I lived in Rwanda, so I was like fresh out of Africa, and that's where my focus was, and that's where my heart was. So like, I just wanted to do something that like benefited them, and then I just enjoyed what I was doing every day. So I just did it every day, and then at the time, I probably would have said, if you really asked me what my goal was, I probably would have said, I don't know. I like what I do. I just want to make this a big, enjoyable, profitable company.
Yeah, but sometimes that's the best route, to be honest. Just saying, I like what I do, keep it going, and then the money just follows. It's not your main objective.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But if you get good at something you're passionate about and you're having fun, I mean, I feel like that's just what naturally happens.
I mean, that's part of the goal, is to enjoy it, right? So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, chasing money isn't always the best thing.
Right. Yeah. My dad always said.
Did you ever find yourself in that position when or even money? Just a small amount of time spent, or do you ever get stuck in that, trying to chase the numbers?
I chase the numbers every day. That's all I ever do. What do you mean by chasing the numbers?
As in, you didn't, you sort of started to cut corners in order to make more money. Making moves that weren't necessarily, best for long-term growth, just in the.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to judge exactly which corners were cut that shouldn't have been cut. I don't really call it cutting corner, but like cutting a cost, right? So like, let's say I have a broker in one particular region, and I feel like they're not doing a great job, and I feel like I'm wasting too much money on them, and I say, you know what, it's not working anymore, and I fire that broker. well, what if a month later that broker was around the corner from getting a huge account, you know?
Right.
So maybe I
Right.
missed out on that. I don't know. But for me, like the numbers tell the story, and like as long as the numbers are good with the company, like at the end of the day, you're probably doing a good job.
Right. Of
So,
course. Okay.
yeah.
Makes sense. Got it. Got it. All right. So now we move into the nitty gritty part of the interview and what the listeners really want to hear about is, we hear about such, very obvious concept is what I like to call them, saying, bring the cost of goods down.
Mm-hmm.
It's something, of course, everyone's always trying to do that, but like, what are the mechanics of doing that? How do you actually do that?
When we lost those two big customers back in the day, like that not only made me focus on the business and stuff like that, but I also learned a lot of different lessons about how not to lose customers. And I don't think we've lost a major customer since then. And so every year has been solid growth since then, like really good growth, like 40 to 50% growth, because we didn't. I found out what I was doing wrong. I learned a lot of lessons from those two things, and
How to not lose a big customer.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Well, okay. So part of the reason that we, a huge thing that you'll learn, and I've talked to you about this a little bit, but a lot of if anybody is starting a food company, and that they'll learn when they get into it is trade spend or promotional spend, right? So we lost a customer probably because we weren't doing enough promotions with that customer, right? So at the end of the day, a buyer is looking at this dried fruit brand versus this dried fruit brand, and like this dried fruit brand is selling X number of bags per week, but we could bring this one in, and this one says that they're going to give us 50% off 6 times a year. Well, imagine how much more revenue that brand is going to make for the buyer, right?
Yep.
So my product is good. It was sitting on the shelf, but I wasn't promoting it enough. I wasn't like doing enough like sales to entice people to buy it, to really jack up the numbers as much as I could, right? I would make the sale, and then I'd be like, well, I don't want to do promotions, like, because they're just going to take money from me.
Right. Yeah.
But that's a lesson you learn. That's a lesson I learned over time. Is like, if I sell this for $1, which I don't sell for $1, but let's just assume I sell for $1, I don't get paid $1, and I shouldn't expect to get paid $1. I should expect to get 70 to 80 cents. And you have to know that from the beginning. Like,
of course,
don't expect to get paid $1. Because if you do, that's how you lose customers. If you expect to get paid 70 cents, then you have all that 30 cents to play with, right? Or 30% to play with for promotions, right? You can do a sale within the store. You can do like promotional activities. You can have like street teams or whatever. I mean, that's a little bit more expensive, but all of that money you should be using to stay on the shelf.
Got it.
So like maybe the customer says, we want you to do an advertisement in our monthly catalog. If you from the beginning, if you think that I have that 30% to spend, then you can afford that. So it's just like you gotta like have that mindset from the beginning, and that's something I didn't know, but learned over time.
Got it. So you take a small percentage,
Yeah,
in order to, in terms of the longevity of the relationship with the big retailer, especially, right? You want to have that volume there.
Right.
Got it.
Or
Okay.
like anybody. I mean, really for me,
Small
it's
ones
everybody.
too.
It's
Sure.
everybody.
Yep.
Because if a co-op in Minnesota emails me and they say like, we have a customer appreciation day coming up on next Saturday. Could you send us some free samples? No question. I absolutely send them free samples because they're a good customer. And like,
Got it.
I actually might. It's just one store.
How do you determine how much you give in samples?
Depends. Like for
A single
for like a
location
potential
that,
buyer or for like a customer appreciation day?
Yeah, customer appreciation.
Usually what I'll do is I'll ask them, so we have 11 different products in distribution, so I'll ask them which ones they carry, and then I usually just send them a case, which is six bags.
6 bags.
So less than a pound.
Got it. Okay.
It actually costs more in shipping than it does in products, but it's more like, hopefully some people will try the product, hopefully they'll like it and buy it, but it's also more just about keeping that customer happy.
Right.
And like showing that you're a good partner, which is huge. Like this business is so much about like, yes, you gotta have a good product and it has to be priced well, but like so much of it is just relationships and logistics. I think like do what you say you're gonna do on time.
Right.
And people like that. Like people don't necessarily like if you're they're carrying a dried fruit and this dried fruit just like they're just late on every purchase order.
Yeah.
And then this one is just always on time. You have something that's always on time,
That
it's
stands
no
out.
headache. It's
Yep.
not a headache and you don't have to worry about it. You won't want to change that next time. So
Right,
So
no
that's a
one
big
wants
part of it.
headaches. Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we get into the nitty gritty part of the business. Phil, you've done nearly $4 million in revenue this year, and people really want to learn from you. They want to know, how can I get there, right? What's the first step in getting to that? And a lot of times they want to ask, very, not the obvious questions.
First year in business, we did $12,000 in revenue, right?
Right, 12,000. Hey,
and I thought that was good.
It's not a bad first year.
I was like, $12,000, we do that in one order now.
Companies got a business before the first year, yeah.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. We lost a ton of money that year. So how do you get to 10,000, or how do you get to 10 million?
How do you get to 10,000, and how do you scale that?
All right, so the best way to do it, I mean, there's different ways to do it, but for me, it was like when I started, I was like, well, I have a product, I have to sell it. That's how you do it, right? So I would go individual store, I'd go store, and I, kept the product in my garage, and I would like ship to them.
Right. Yep.
And then so that's how we did $12,000 in the first year, right? Which is like, that's not a good goal. So set your sights higher than that.
What is a good first goal? I mean, I know it's very niche oriented, the product, everything, but
if you really dedicate yourself to sales, I mean.
Yeah, in terms of sales, just revenue, what do you?
I mean, I couldn't have done this at the time because I didn't know what I was doing, but like, you could do $500,000 probably.
First year?
Sure.
Really?
I know somebody that like, she was selling cashews and she sold $350,000, and that was like, wasn't even her full-time job.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, but she was on the phone and she was calling big retailers, and she was just like.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She just got in with a few of them, and then like, yeah. But I mean, for me, I didn't know how to do that, so. Okay, so the way the industry works is it's distribution. It's all about distribution, right? So like, you can't just do what I did, which is go store to store to store. It's a great experience, and it teaches you a lot about just talking to people about your product and trying to sell it. So it's a great experience. I don't regret it, but to really do volume, you got to go through distribution. So let's say you're in Philadelphia, and this is not exactly how it works, but there's a distributor in Philadelphia that services all the different food stores in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. Well, if you really want to be in those food stores in Philadelphia, you've got to be in that distributor first, right?
Right.
So that's really the key to growing. So at this point in our business, like, we are in pretty much all of the major distributors in almost every single one of their locations, right?
What are the major distributors?
So within natural foods, it's UNFI, United Natural Foods, and then another company called KeHE. So UNFI primarily, their biggest customer is Whole Foods, so they service all the Whole Foods. KeHE's biggest customer is probably like Safeway, Albertsons, and they also do Sprouts. So let's say you want to be in Safeway, Albertsons, you pretty much have to go through KeHE. Yeah. Sometimes you can go direct.
So these two are the golden eggs of natural foods.
For natural, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. But there's a ton of other distributors too. I mean, there's the ones that are even bigger than that, but they're not necessarily targeted towards natural and startups and smaller companies. Well, let's say you got a customer in Florida, Whole Foods Florida, and it's a region, and there may be 35 stores. If you can get Whole Foods Florida to carry you, Whole Foods Florida will then push you to UNFI, and UNFI will then make an order, and you'll ship to UNFI. UNFI will then ship to those Whole Foods, right? So really, the way to get into distribution, the way to grow sales, and the way to start is to find that customer, right?
Got it.
So let's say like your customer is Jewel in Chicago, and you live in Chicago, and Jewel's like, I don't know, 180 stores or something like that. You want to, that's a great way to start. You get on the phone, you get on LinkedIn, you go to the office.
You find a way in somehow.
When you're beginning, you do whatever you can. Like, you just hustle however you can. You get in there, and then you get a meeting with the head buyer. That's it. And then you tell the head buyer your story.
Right.
And you're going to face a lot of rejection at first, especially if you're brand new, because they're going to be like, what are you? Like, you don't even have UPC codes or something. Or even if your product is perfect, you're still a newbie, right? So like, if you go, that's what you got to do, right? So like, and don't start with one target, start with 50 targets. And Jewel in Chicago, and Whole Foods, and HEB, and Wegmans, and Hannaford, and all these places, right? So pick out your targets, and just do whatever you can to find out who that buyer is. Like, go all over the internet. All this stuff's on the internet somewhere. You just got to find it.
Right.
Or talk to other entrepreneurs, right? Because the food community is very open and very honest and very helpful with each other, because we're all in the same boat together. So you get a meeting with that buyer, you present your product. Hopefully they take it. If they take it, like I said, then they'll put you into distribution. So Jewel in Chicago will be like, well, we're not gonna. There's 180 stores. Each individual store is not gonna buy from you every single week.
Right.
We will buy from the distributor because it's easier for them, right? And then the distributor's gonna buy from you. You're gonna ship to the distributor's gonna ship to all those stores. So I think the key is, if I was gonna recommend to anybody how to do this, it's, pick 50 targets, and then do your
Not
best.
the store target. You mean 50 locations?
Not target. Yeah, I mean
okay.
like targets, like places that you want to be in. Take your top 50 that you think your product would fit in, right? So if it's like, depending on what type of product, mine's organic and natural,
Right.
so I want to focus on like Earth Fare and Whole Foods,
Wherever you have the highest chance of your product
New Seasons,
matching
places
what
like
they
that.
sell.
Exactly, right.
Got it.
So pick your top 50 and then do whatever you can to find them. Now there's other ways to do it too. I mean, like, that's if you have no money, zero money. There's other ways you do it. You can hire a broker. You can hire like a regional broker who usually work. They usually have a retainer, so they'll have a certain amount of money that they want to make every month, or they make 5%, whichever number is higher. So let's say you had a bunch of money, not necessarily a ton, but like you can hire somebody. Let's say you hired somebody in New York City, and they're going to go around and hit all these different individual retailers,
for you.
and they're going to try and find enough retailers to get you into distribution.
Now, what do you call this when the product is new? It's called pioneering, right? It's
Right.
when they're introducing a new product,
Right.
with not a high number of sales,
Right.
and getting interest from local retail locations.
So from a broker's perspective, they're like, like let's look at New York right here, right? So that's this Hudson Valley UNFI distribution center. That broker in New York is going to have a very difficult time selling your product unless you're in distribution. If you're in distribution, they can do it like that.
Got
It's
it.
really easy. So for a broker, let's say you're signing up with them and you have zero distribution. The broker wants to get paid something. So they're not going to be able to actually sell anything for a few months. So they want to be able to get paid. So that's why they'll get like this flat fee to begin with, because they call that pioneering a brand, which is basically going out into a territory where they don't have anything and setting it up. And that broker will theoretically go around and they'll get pre-commitments from a whole bunch of stores. So if you can get 40 pre-commits in one region, then you can usually get that product to be carried by the distributor.
Got it.
It's not cheap.
And that's how a young entrepreneur in the food space would start.
Yeah,
One of
I
those
mean,
two ways, right? If
It
you got the money,
it all depends how much money you have.
right? You got the money,
and what
go
your
towards
goals
the
are.
broker,
Right.
and if you don't, you got to knock
I mean,
on a few doors.
if you have even more money, you can buy your way into the distributor.
Sure. And how much would that cost? What do you think?
I would say maybe $10,000 just to get in, to get
Right.
carried. And basically, it's not straight cash. What you would do is kind of like, you would hopefully be able to get a meeting with this distributor and you say, here's my product. I know it's brand new. I know I have zero distribution. I know I have zero experience, but I am going to sign up for all 4 of your food shows this year, and I'm going to do your speed to market program, and I'm going to offer you 25% off for the first 12 months. So it's like all this money you got to throw at them,
Right.
to try to get them to take you seriously.
So you're taking
Right.
the risk out for them, right? Is basically
Exactly.
what you got it.
Exactly right. So they don't want to carry your product. You have zero sales. It's gonna sit in the warehouse and nobody's ever gonna order it. They don't want to do that.
Right.
So you got to take away the burden of.
You
that
offer
risk.
them a way to always make money,
Right.
and then you take the risk.
Exactly.
Okay.
yeah.
Now, one of the things that a lot of people like to talk about is the highlights, the success points. With these great achievements that entrepreneurs with very large companies have done. But a lot of the things that get overlooked is the behind the scenes work that someone has to do by themselves with no one watching to get them to where they are. Right? It's like whether it's the sleepless nights, whether it's going knocking door to door, whether it's getting close to giving up, just a split second away from that. What kind of moments have you encountered? That not a lot of people know you've been through, whether it's physically, mentally.
I mean, like, so just the highs and the lows, or either, or.
Yeah, like the lowest of the lows. What do
I mean, there's a lot, but just so many mistakes I've made throughout the years, and not necessarily always mistakes. Like, you think it was a good idea and it just doesn't work out. So, like I said, we have our own warehouse now, but I went through 3 different co-packers in 3 years, and actually 4, I think. And the first one I dedicated so much effort to, and like I paid for their organic certification, and then like we were like ready to get going on day one, and like the guy expects me to be the one that's actually packing, so I had to like drive like 45 minutes out to this place every day.
Physically packing the
Yeah,
product.
and I was like, so wait, what am I paying you for? Like,
the co-packer wanted you to pack the product. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was really weird. I didn't know what I was doing. He didn't know what he was doing, so that didn't last very long.
Right.
But I mean, like I remember the final co-packer that we used before I got our own warehouse was like, it just was not working. And I remember I was at the gym, and they like getting an email from a co-packer is the worst because it's always bad news. It's either like there's a problem or we shipped incorrectly or we didn't ship on time or
building caught fire.
I know you sent this order in a week ago, but we don't actually have this product. You're like, so I remember I was at the gym and I got this email from this co-packer. I don't even remember what they said, but I was just like, you know what, dude? Like I just wrote back. I was sitting in the gym and I was like mad.
Right. Yeah.
You
got your adrenaline rushing in the gym.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I actually I make decisions emotionally a lot.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't think it's bad.
Interesting.
Yeah. I could talk about that too, but like, so I was just like, I was like, you know what, ship everything back to me. I didn't even know where I was going to put it.
On the spot.
Yeah, and I had like 2 truckloads full of stuff, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? So luckily I like scrambled and I found a warehouse in Philadelphia, and we've been here for almost 4 years now, so it's great. But yeah, no, I mean, about this is not really one of your questions, but like, I do make decisions emotionally sometimes. And I think, I don't know, like you
think it's for the better or for the worse?
I think it's for the better for me, but I'm also still a very small company, right? So like, if something feels good to me, I need it to feel good because I'm the one that has to live with that, right? So like, if I have a good chat with the potential broker, there might be some bad things, but if I feel good about it, I might just do that. Or alternatively, sometimes I use when I'm upset about something. Sometimes I'll use that too. Mm-hmm. So, you never want to be mean to anybody.
No,
but sometimes, like, if everything's just going swimmingly, like, you might not want to have any conflicts with anybody. But if I'm like pissed off or something, like sometimes I'll use that.
Which I'm sure you must have a reason to.
I'll be like, dude, you gotta be kidding me. Why does this box cost 35 cents? You know it's 32. And like, I won't say that every day because I don't really particularly like conflict, but I'll use it when I get into an emotional state.
Okay, so you put it in the back burner.
I mean, like, you can't do that if you're like a giant $100 million company, I don't think.
Right.
It's probably not a good idea. You got a big team of people making decisions.
So once you get there 5 years from now, $100 million.
Right.
Okay. So do you have so what are your plans for the end of the year? Your 10-year plan, 20 years? Where do you see Mavuno Harvest going?
What does that mean for this year? I mean, we had a good year, so picked up a lot of great new stores, and we added some new products and did a lot of food shows. Got out there a lot, talked to a lot of people. Really, the rest of the year is like, that's it, strategy.
Got it.
So the last quarter is strategy for me. Like, I don't
to prepare for the next year and kill it. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. The product. Yeah. Right. So everything we do is organic. It's completely natural, and I'm not talking about natural as in like the term that people use. But this is real, natural.
Right.
Like you said, the ingredients in the jackfruit is organic dried jackfruit. That's it. So we have 7 different dried fruits: mango, pineapple, banana, papaya, jackfruit, coconut, and then a tropical mix, which is a mix of mango, pineapple, banana. And that was our bread and butter. And I've added SKUs every year. And then last year we added cashews, so we actually do roasted cashews and then roasted and salted cashews. And then just this year we launched these products, which are basically, we're calling them organic chewy fruit bites. And what they are is I tried them about a year ago and I was blown away by how good they are, because it's this naturally consistent texture and moisture, and they're very snackable. You got a great price point. Like, that bag's only $2.99 in stores.
Right. Do you make sure that you like the product, that you love the product first before put it out to market? Are you like the first barrier it has to pass?
No, I mean,
Or do you
I've
just let
never
the
put
market
anything
decide?
out.
Regardless of what you think, you let the market decide.
I've never put anything out that I don't like, but that wouldn't be.
But if you hated it and everyone else loved it, of course you'd put it out.
I mean, for me, it's like, it's two things. Is it good from a business perspective? Is it, going to sell and going to make money and people are going to like it? And number two, does it, do some good in the world from its actual sourcing, right? As long as it meets those two, it's cool. Now,
as part of the final segment, do you have any final words for young entrepreneurs, whether they're in the food space or not, in terms of big picture, and then one practical, piece of advice that you think is essential to any business and its success?
Okay, so when you start a company, you're going to have to do, depending on what your company is, you're going to have to do sourcing, operations, logistics, sales, marketing, accounting, HR, finance. There's a lot of different things to do, right? Or unless you have 8 different people.
Got it. Yep.
It's a lot of different things, right? So I do all of those 8 things plus however many more. But I think my company is a pure reflection of what I'm good at, right? So I would recommend to any entrepreneur starting out, like, same to you with your company, like, let's just pretend that those are the 8 silos, right? Find which one of them that you're really good at and just do the crap out of that. Just be that. And whatever else you're not good at, find somebody to do it. Either learn to do it, or find somebody to do it.
So you can understand that when you're communicating with someone who might be a little bit better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, I love numbers, right? So I do my own books. I do my own finances. I do all that stuff. I do the paychecks. And I do all the, I do the CFO type work, but that's just because that's what I like, right? And I do the sales also, but I hire a lot of different salespeople. I hire a lot of different brokers because that's truthfully, they're better at it than I am, right? So you only have a certain amount of time in the day. So find what you're good at and just do the crap out of that thing. And hopefully it's multiple things. And then if there's something that you're okay at, maybe you can learn to be better at it. If it's something you just hate, hire somebody to do that. So if you hate finance, if you hate accounting, hire somebody to do the accounting and go be the salesperson.
Okay.
But like every company is going to be a reflection of the actual individual entrepreneur themselves, right? And so, in order for you to enjoy it and really love it, you got to be doing what you like to do. So, like with your company, like you're doing all these like videos where you're basically lifting weights. Like you like to lift weights,
right?
Yeah, and you're pretty good at this like online marketing stuff. So like I feel like that's something that you're keying in on that you like to do, and like you're learning how to do it, and like you're probably getting better and better at these online ads every day just because you're learning how to do it, right? So that's great. Like you should do that. If you don't want to do a cash flow statement, you're going to need to do it. Somebody needs to do it.
It has to be done, of course. Yeah.
But you can hire somebody. You can find somebody on Craigslist to do it for you. So that's what I would say to like any entrepreneur. Like, so don't be afraid of like all the different things that you're going to have to do, because if you really like it, it's going to be okay. You're going to enjoy it.
It's going to come natural. Got it.
Yeah. And then other than that, it's just put one foot in front of the other, just every day, try to make some progress. And don't worry if you don't make progress that day. Make sure you look at it on a big scale. Don't look at it day to day as if this bad thing happened this day. And this is something I've gotten much better at over the years. Like, I used to be much more like this, like the high lows, right? Like up and down every day, every week. Now I'm much more like I can take a disappointment. I can take, like you asked about earlier about the no's, right? How do you take a no? Like, it used to be hard. Now I don't care. Now if somebody says no to me,
you like it.
I'm almost glad, because I'm like, okay, cool, I don't have to do that anymore.
I want them to say no.
Yeah. Like I was emailing a customer recently, yesterday, and I've been going back and forth with them, and like he said, you know what, it's not going to work. And I said, okay, no problem. And I took him off my list. Good. He's off the list. Good.
There you go.
Cool.
One less thing to
Let
worry
me find
about.
somebody else that does want it, because that's one person. That person was taking up some time, and now that person's going to take up no more time. And it wasn't going anywhere anyway, so now I can use my time to go with somebody else. So, the no's are, they hurt at first, but the longer you go along,
it's just clearing the way for everyone who wants to give you a yes.
Yeah. And you just get really thick skin.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, thanks a lot, Phil. Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
I'm sure the audience was very happy with everything you had to say.
Good.
Even if only one person gets something out of it, it was definitely worth it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
So
thanks a lot.
MavunoHarvest.com. You can email us at info@mavunoharvest.com.
Yeah, I'm gonna put everything down in the link in the description so you guys will be able to access the store and every other information on Mavuno.
Sounds good.
Sweet, thanks guys.
All right, man.
All right, cool. Hey, that was great.
Yeah,
That
good.
was nice.
Cool.